Hello and welcome to the Urban Dharma NC podcast. In this third part of a series, Dorje Lopon Dr. Hun Lye teaches about the songs of Milarepa, the 11th century Tibetan saint who reached the ultimate state of awakening. The presentation of these profound songs is integrated with teachings on the Guruyoga of Milarepa sadhana, in order to introduce a more contemplative and experience-based approach to practicing this liturgy. Urban Dharma is a Buddhist temple in the heart of Asheville, North Carolina. We are supported by your generosity and by our online store, TibetanSpirit.com. To learn more about us, come visit our temple in person, or look us up online at udharmanc.com. Thanks for listening.
So now we'll look at this text called A Small Collection of Milarepa Songs. You look at the cover. These songs are extracted from several sources. I want to acknowledge these sources and to remind all of us that all of this takes resources in order to have what we have here. Not only having this physical space of Urban Dharma takes resources. Making the live cast available to people that are away, far away, takes resources. And then, text being translated takes also resources. Translators have to live. Come on in, don't worry. Really, we have to move a little bit faster. Otherwise, people get intimidated. So don't be shy, Linda, the minute when people open the door and say welcome. Even if it is loud, don't worry about it. I'm loud. So your welcome won't drown me out. That's why we're here. Not just for this, but for every person that steps in. The seeds are planted. If they accidentally hear even just one line, the seeds are planted. We believe that. That's why we're here. It's the bigger picture that we're talking about. So we also cannot just think about me, right? In fact, you are making it possible for the seeds to be more widely planted. Because I still have worldly thoughts. So that I can't just sit here in an empty room and just blabber away and hope somebody would walk in and accidentally have seeds planted. So you are here to feed my worldly concerns. But hopefully with our collective bodhicitta, it will bring benefit more than what's obvious, more than what we can see. So back to this. So these translations, three of these songs come from a group that translated them, called Marpa Translation Committee. And then two of these songs can be found in this website, ktgrinpoche.org, which is this great Drikung Kagyu Khyentpo Sutrim Gyemso. A great Khyentpo, very old now, and it's on his website. So two songs come from there, and then the other two songs is based on a very famous collection published in English called the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa in 2 volumes. Don't be disappointed, and also don't worry. It's not literally 100,000 songs. It means many. So the first song I would like to look at is the song called 6 Illusions as Metaphors. Metaphors of Impermanence. 6 illusions as metaphors of impermanence. Look there at all the objects appearing outside, fleeting visions like last night's dream. When you recall they are dreamlike, these delusions make your mind uneasy. Have you cut delusion at the root, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at your body, transitory like a city of Gandharvas, its rising and falling make your mind uneasy. Have you cut through birth and death, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at the perceiving mind, fugitive like a bird in the crest of a tree, so restless it makes your mind uneasy. Have you taken a hold of mind's secure ground, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at the breath moving inside, it's impermanent like mist in the air. The fading and passing of mist makes your mind uneasy. Have you seen movement vanish on its own, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking at these friends assembled here, they are transient like crowds at a fair. Once gathered, they are sure to part, making your mind uneasy. Have you set relations on a higher level, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking at the wealth collected here, evanescent like honey of the bees, someone else enjoying your things makes your mind uneasy. Have you opened the treasure of mind itself, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. So the 6 metaphors here: dream, city of Gandharvas, dream, city of Gandharvas, bird, mist, crowds, and bees. These are the 6. Rechungpa, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the 2 most important disciples of Milarepa. In fact, it's said that there were 4 pillars in a vision, in a dream that Milarepa had. He saw 4 visions, 4 pillars, and on top of the pillars were these 4 animals, almost like Harry Potter. So these 4 houses, and each one of them is one of his 4 chief disciples, and 2 of them was Rechungpa, I believe, and Gampopa. So you could say that Gampopa was his most important monastic successor, and Rechungpa was the most important non-monastic successor. So that's, I said, I prefer the word non-monastic than lay, because Rechungpa certainly wasn't playing, a supporting role or a less important role. He was, in fact, if we look at available biographies of Milarepa, we see that Rechungpa was a lot closer to him in terms of these songs, many songs were addressed to Drikung. Gampopa came later in Milarepa's life and also was with Milarepa for a shorter period. But today, almost all the Kagyu lineages trace themselves back to Gampopa, as I said. That's why we say Dakpo, which is where Gampopa comes from, Dakpo Kagyu. Drikung's lineage has been absorbed into the other Kagyus. And the reason why is because the non-monastic lineages were harder to maintain and to preserve. I know we all, not all, but I think most of us kind of have a distrust of institutions. So we like the non-institution spirituality, right? We fear organized religion. I said, be careful with that fear. That fear might push you to something worse, disorganized religion. But yeah, for good reason, we are suspicious, of organized religion or institutions. But also, as a fact, it was the institution, more institution-based, not institutionalized. Well, it could mean that too, but institutionalized has two meanings, right? but it's the structure that these institutions provided that today we still have, Milarepa remembered and the songs preserved. If it was left to Drikung, I think we might not have these today, because by nature they were not interested in building, even building libraries to keep books, and they relied very little on books even. It's all oral texts. They sing, they move on. They sing, they move on. And then no one, kind of collecting all the things that have been sung and then, publishing them. Taking it to the publishers, getting wood blocks carved, right, and printed. All of that is done by institutions, and the resources that people provide institutions to keep these going. So if we don't invest in that, we're not going to get this, right? So, but Drikung was clearly kind of, even I would say of the two, I know a lot of Kagyupas probably think, I'm saying something, scandalous. But between Gampopa and Drikung, I think we have more evidence that Drikung was probably the closest to Gampopa. To Milarepa. Because they have the same lifestyle, the same way of living. And Drikung, in fact, even went to India to seek teachings. It said that Milarepa himself wanted to go. He attempted a journey, but he didn't continue it. He turned around and came back. So there were a number of teachings and practices that Marpa did not bring back from India. One of them, they say, is a technique of practicing preventing untimely deaths through the practice of Amitayus, the longevity practice of Amitayus. And so it said that Milarepa sent Drikung to India, in particular, to bring back that teaching. And other things, of course. But it's because Milarepa could tell that Drikung was that a strong obstacle to Drikung's continued existence as Drikung was about to manifest in the near future. So then Milarepa told Drikung, I heard from my teacher that there is this one practice, but he never received. And so it would be good, I wanted to go, but I can't go now. I'm getting old. It would be good if you go. So Drikung made the difficult journey into India, or maybe into Nepal, I think hard to tell. And then he came back with that particular transmission. And then Milarepa said, now you should offer that to me. And so this is in one very unique instance where in the lineage prayer to this practice, the student comes before the teacher. Because in this one practice, it's Rechongpa who gave it to Milarepa instead of Milarepa to Rechongpa. So that's who Rechongpa is here, that he's singing to Rechongpa. So he says, look there at all the objects appearing outside. So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch are these appearances. So it's a technical term, appearances. By calling external physical phenomena or phenomena of the senses, by referring to the objects of the senses as appearances, as appearing outside, it's reminding us already that without needing to get into kind of metaphysical discussions or physics discussion of whether these objects of the senses truly exist out there or not, is enough here to recognize that whatever it is that we believe to or assume to exist outside, they exist only in the way that they appear to exist to us. Right? So there might be a pew over there or not. And one could get into metaphysical and then physics and quantum physics, right? Debates and discussion and analysis as to whether that pew is truly out there or not. And of course, certain things in quantum physics seems to suggest that it's not existing there in the way that we suppose it exists out there. So all we can really say is that whatever sensory objects that I experience, I only experience the way in which they appear to me. Right? And hence I can call that a pew. And you also can call that a pew. For someone who has never seen a pew before, or even a chair before, in a culture where there are no chairs, that would not appear as a sitting thing, as a thing to sit on. That might look like a thing to lay down on for very slim people. That might look like a place to kneel before and put your hands on and pray to the golden calf. Right? Again, depending on, right? Their own karmic circumstance, the pew appears differently. So here, Milarepa says, look there at all the objects appearing outside. So they appear to exist outside. In the next verse later, or two verses down, he will point to the mind. But before he does that, he just says, let's just look at all the things that appear outside. If you really look at them, try to see how they are fleeting visions. They're fleeting. One day you feel a certain way towards the pew, another day you feel a certain other way. Then if something strong happens there, then it changes again, right? And even from moment to moment, right? Now I'm looking away from it. My experience of that pew now is in the abstract, right? Because my eyes are not actually looking at it, but I have a mental picture of it. But my mental picture is also an object of the senses, in this case, the intellect. So it's an idea, it's a memory of the pew that I have now. And then with that comes many other memories. Now, all of these, he says, they are fleeting visions. Right? They're like last night's dream. And he says, when you recall that they are dreamlike, then these delusions make your mind uneasy. Now he's describing Rechongpa. He's describing us. When we finally, kind of catch a glimpse, or is being pushed into seeing, that what we were so sure about, what we were so certain about, what we take for granted to be, in fact, that's all just delusional. The thing about delusions is that they are not always inconvenient. Often, that's the problem, that they are convenient. It's convenient to believe that we live in a world without racism, without sexism. It's convenient to believe that. But those are false appearances. So these delusions are particularly pernicious because they are often very convenient. They are often very much in service of confusion. But we have become so comfortable with confusion. Now, if we can become so comfortable with confusion until, to the point of confusion being native and natural, then maybe it's okay. Then maybe it's okay. But the problem with confusion is, no matter how good you get at it, it's not going to feel native. It's not going to feel natural. That's the problem with confusion. If we could naturalize confusion, then that's not so bad. There's a story that a Tibetan philosopher of the 20th century, Gendunchebil, he tells a story about a kingdom where one day some mysterious wise man comes to the king and warns the king and say, in about a week or in about a month, it will rain for like a week. And during that time, all that water that comes down, if anyone drinks that water, they will go insane. So when the king heard this, he summoned his whole kingdom to bring out all these big tubs and whatever utensils you have to collect rain between now and the beginning of the crazy rain. So they collected as much as they can. Then crazy rain came. And then some people didn't get the memo, So they drank that water. So they lost their mind. But then that crazy rain continued. No good rain came. So then more people, no choice, have to drink the water. Because if you don't drink, you die. It's better to be crazy than die. The story goes that eventually only the king had enough water saved. So that, and he had enough saved for the rest of his life. But by that point, everybody have lost their mind. He felt okay for only a short time. After that, he decided to also drink the crazy water. Because then everyone is crazy, then that's the new norm. And so the story wasn't told, to say this is what we should do. The story is sort of saying that if it is possible, to normalize confusion, then confusion might not be such a big problem. But the problem is that confusion cannot be normalized. Suffering cannot be normalized. Not as an imperative, but as simply the way things are. That suffering is not innate. Confusion is not innate. What's innate is this emptiness and clarity. And so we don't want to see, how uncertain things are. So we go about living with these kind of false security that everything is fine. So as they say, security is just a sense of security. A sense. So it's a sensation. I mean, have you really paid attention to that expression? Especially the commercial, the ads on TV or radio that is trying to sell us products related to being safe and safety. Interestingly, they all say, like alarm system and this and that, and it will give you a sense of security. They know enough not to promise it will give you security, because they can't secure you. So they're actually telling more truth than we are actually listening to. Invest with us with a sense of security. Well, there they already told you, we could lose all your money overnight. But they only promise you a sense of security. So we have been promised a sense of security, but we don't listen. We think the sense of security and security are the same. So we sign up for security when all they can offer is a sense of security. And if you try to sue them, they say, well, we already say we only offer a sense of security. If you lose that sense, it's not our fault. You lost that sense. Yeah? What can we do if you lost that sense of security? We freely offer a sense of security. That's all security or certainty offers, a sense. And so when we realize that, he says, when you really come face to face with how impossible it is to be secure, he says, it makes your heart uneasy. That's what we've been feeling, many of us, the last few days. extremely uneasy. Because we have lost what? Our sense of security. And the most vulnerable in our society will tell you, this is not new to us. This is not new to us. To be able to offer a sense of security is good in the short term, but it's also that which keeps the system going. Now, applied to politics and bigger picture, it's complicated. It's not as simple as therefore throw away all sense of security at no matter what cost to have change. It's easier when we're in positions and situations of relative privilege to do that. But the consequences for those who cannot afford it might be greater. So then we have to watch our actions. But here again, not here to teach activism or politics, but just on the level of the Dharma, as transforming our own self, so that the self can be more effective in serving others. It says, so when we finally see how all of this can go away like a dream, so it says dreamlike, then of course we become really uneasy. And so he asked Drikung, and if you don't like that uneasiness, then what have you done to cut delusion at the root? Objectively, that delusion at the root, on the objective end of this, is not understanding that there's a basic discrepancy between the way things appear to us and the way they truly are. So, technical Buddhist terms, the mode of appearance and the mode of abiding. More of you need to know this vocabulary, okay? Otherwise, I can't do all of this all the time. Some of you have to start sitting here. So the mode of abiding and the mode of appearance. So that's on the objective end. On the subjective end, of when we experience something, then the delusion is the delusion of I as a independently self-existing entity, instead of understanding interdependence and subject to causes and conditions. So a rigid, a solid view of self, which is impossible to maintain. Again, only possible to have a sense of security that I am. But that sense of security will keep breaking apart, will keep falling apart. And then the way we make this continue to work is we keep gluing it back together. And then it gets smashed again. And then we glue it back together. Because somebody says, now, this is elephant glue. Elephant glue. Oh, strong like elephant. Oh, put that. Now, this is super glue. Now, even fancier, we use gold to solder it back together. And so always, we try to find more powerful glue, more fancy glue to try to glue back together that which is not possible to glue back together. But we still think I. But it's such a burden to have to carry around and maintain this I, when on so many levels it's a continuously shifting and moving entity. It's a whole bunch of processes going on in which we throw the convenient label of I. And then following that, other labels. American, female, this, that, more labels. Out of convenience, we use the labels. But then we begin to mistake the labels, which seems pretty cohesive, which seems pretty hanging all together. But the label that the thing that we throw the label on is a continuously shifting bunch of processes, which in traditional Buddhist vocabulary we call skandhas, heaps. I think if you translate it to terms that maybe even non-Buddhists can understand, we say that which we put a label on and call I is just a bunch of processes going on. And seeing that nature is this thing called cutting the delusion at the root. Yes?
Because you put a label on something, you're separating it from yourself. You're not seeing it as a thing.
Here, actually, it doesn't even say that there is a self.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that if you label a drum, if you label this, you're not seeing the true essence. You're too busy chopping it up in pieces instead of looking at the whole picture.
The teaching here is actually saying even the essence, there is no essence to be seen. The essence that is seen is that there is no essence. Yeah, so it's not so much. It is, of course, on a more, surface level. It's sort of, I know what you're pointing to. It's true on that level that, often we put a label on someone, but we don't see them as truly who they are. So there's that level of seeing, right? To see beyond labels. Good, of course. But here Milarepa is talking about even a deeper seeing. That when you look and look and look, you cannot find anything. That's when delusion is absolutely cut. Now, when I look, I label. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, this person needs some plastic surgery help. And so then, no. Learn to look so that it's not that you're looking at, and you see this person for who they are. That's the conventional deeper way of looking. The Buddhist deeper way of looking cuts even deeper, that causes your head to explode. Which is when you look and you look and you look, that not seeing, Naropa Tilopa, many of their short pithy teachings say, the not seeing is what we see. They say, look at your mind again and again. The not seeing of that mind is the highest seeing. But here it's not saying, don't look at the mind, which is right now our situation. Don't look at the mind, don't see the mind. That's not being enlightened. The Dharma way is keep looking at the mind, keep looking at the mind, keep looking at the mind, and look deeper and deeper and deeper. There is no mind to be seen. And yet you cannot say, there's no mind. But it cannot be found. And that unfindability is what frees us from bondage. The non-findability, the not seeing. Vocabulary is different in Madhyamaka studies. The unfindability in more kind of songs, Mahamudra, that style is not seeing. Not seeing. Which is different from missing, or don't see, or being blind to. And then he says, when I reflect on this, then the sublime Dharma comes to mind. So he's also saying, if you can kind of see things from Milarepa's perspective, then when he sees the dreamlike quality, right, of things, when he experiences the dreamlike quality of things, he doesn't freak out. He doesn't become, defeated. He doesn't become angry. He doesn't lash out. Instead, when he sees how, all the objects appearing outside is dreamlike, he says, my mind turns to the sublime Dharma. And he's at ease. In contrast, here Rechongpa represents us. Us as in those of us who are on the path. Because there are people who are not on the path, they don't even see. Right? That all the objects appearing outside is like last night's dream. They think it's real. But for practitioners, represented here by Rechongpa, he says, so in a way it's saying it's okay if you feel uneasy, because you're now actually starting to see better. But then also continue on the path, so that we can be like Milarepa, so that when we see the dreamlike quality of our experiences, our mind turns to the sublime Dharma. Then we can be at ease. So we'll take a break here and resume at 2:00. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Urban Dharma NC podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll consider supporting our mission to foster a deeper understanding of the teachings of the Buddha, to build meaningful community, and to integrate contemplative teachings into everyday life. We invite you to make a donation online at udharmanc.com or make a purchase at our store, tibetanspirit.com. Thank you. May all beings benefit.